Salman Kaisrani Foundation, in collaboration with the Professional Development Centre, National University of Science and Technology, presents Resolving Pakistan's Economic Crunch, Public-Private Partnership Workshop for the 21st Century. Our panellists are the pioneers of successful PPP projects in Pakistan. Lieutenant General Retired Mohammad Afzal, expertise, leadership and corporate strategy, public-private partnerships, education, PhD candidate at École des Ponts, MSc in civil engineering and in strategic studies, executive MBA from London School of Economics, New York University Stern School of Business and HEC, Paris Business School. Experience, former DG FWO, former Engineer-in-Chief PAC Army, former Chairman NDMA. Salman Kaisrani, expertise, public-private partnerships, project management, oil and gas sector, education, master's degree in engineering, postgraduate diploma in project management. Experience, 38 years in top-tier organizations like Pakistan State Oil, Occidental of Pakistan Inc., Baikio Petroleum and FWO. Contributions, former Deputy DG FWO, renowned motivational speaker and master trainer. Dr. Iftikhar Mahbub, expertise, public-private partnerships, financial management, education, PhD in management sciences, MBA in finance. Experience, Director of PPP at the National Highway Authority, Infrastructural Project. Salman Kaisrani Foundation. Salman Kaisrani Foundation is an approved licensed professional engineering body by Pakistan Engineering Council, established with a vision to build a state-of-the-art institute for special needs children. We don't accept any donations as we believe in business partnership with Almighty Allah. Our motives are the following. 1. To assist enterprises in developing their business lines successfully. 2. Educate the youth on building a strong career path in the industrial and service sector. 3. Targeting to develop institutions for the rehabilitation of mentally challenged homeless street children.
A warm welcome to all the participants of the webinar. A brief introduction of the upcoming workshop facilitators was displayed on the screen. I just want to add a few sentences in that the workshop facilitators can be rated as one of the pioneers of public-private partnership successful projects in the recent past, and they are the best combination of client and the concessionaire in a public-private partnership project with a cumulative experience of more than 100 years and with the experience of public-private partnership individually 10 years and cumulatively 30 years. So this is a golden opportunity for all of you to learn from the pioneers of public-private partnership, from the practical hard-earned experience. And coming directly to the nomenclature of the workshop, that is Resolving Pakistan's Economic Crunch and PPP Workshop for the 21st Century, there are two actionable points. Number one is Resolving Pakistan's Economic Crunch. General will be explaining this point in detail. And number two is PPP Workshop for the 21st Century. Strategically speaking, both these points converge in the context of global economic growth. For the year 21-22, which is going to be our reference year, which was 4.4%. And that of our neighboring country, India, it surged to 7.2%, whereas our nominal GDP dropped from $374 billion to $340 billion US, a big question mark. And that has resulted into opting for IMF loan and to adapt IMF laid down policies and procedures, which has resulted into a devaluation of Pak rupees, decreased foreign direct investments, increased inflation, increased interest rates, and reduced tax to GDP ratio and increased debt to GDP ratio. But under such circumstances where the economic recession is taking place, the erratic behavior of Pakistan Stock Exchange cannot be explained. So these are the economic crunches which has impacted our economy, and the resultant factor is very alarming. The resultant factor is that the total income of federal government after paying the provincial dues is 7,000 billion Pak rupees, whereas the amount required for debt servicing only is 8,000 billion Pak rupees. So you have to generate an extra 1,000 billion Pak rupees through loans and interest, which ultimately the taxpayers of Pakistan have to pay. And then what to talk about the operational expenses, which are around about 700 billion Pak rupees, the pension expenses, which are more than the operational expenses, it's 800 billion Pak rupees. The subsidies which we have to offer is around about, I think, 1,300 billion Pak rupees, and big ticket items like defense budget is 1,800 billion Pak rupees. And last but not the least is the development budget, that is 970 billion Pak rupees, which is less than what it was 5 years back. Really an alarming situation. So what is the answer? The answer is revamping of economic policies. The revamping of economic policies have 3 pillars. Number 1 is protecting Pakistan from debt-based investments. Because debt-based investments are not aid, they are not grants, they are loans with certain interest amounts, which ultimately the taxpayers of Pakistan have to pay back with interest. So we have to look into the terms and conditions of such debt-based investments very carefully, and we should make sure that we should not repeat the follies of 90s investment in IPPs. And we should also see that what is the implementation cost of such debt-based investments, and who's implementing that debt-based investment. A glaring example of that is Multan Sakam motorway, which was approved in 2014 and was implemented in 2016 till 2019. And the transportation engineers must verify my claim that the cost was 1 billion Pak rupees per 6-lane kilometer, an extraordinary high cost at that time. The second one is guarding Pakistan's key economic assets. This is very important, and journal is going to shed informative knowledge on that. But the crux is that corporatization is the best answer to improve the credit worthiness of the asset and to improve its balance sheet and make it a right case for public-private partnership so that more and more investors are attracted. And that is the right answer, because in PPP and in corporatization, the asset remains the property of government of Pakistan. The ownership is with the people of Pakistan. In privatization, the ownership is transferred. And if you're looking for the foreign direct investment in this case, then foreign direct investment, I can't just understand and figure it out. Because if somebody from USA wants to buy Pakistan Railway, the revenues will be in Pak rupees, but he will be targeting to take back the return on investment in US dollars. So we have to see that whether our forex reserves, foreign exchange reserves, permits that, or if we extrapolate our present condition for coming 5 to 10 years, does our foreign exchange permits us to give the return on investment of the targeted privatized asset in dollars? I think this is a question which must be taken care of. Last but not the least is that the development of economy, whether it is developed economy or developing economies, is in the development of infrastructure in industrial sector, infrastructure in agriculture sector or service sector. This is the answer to the development, and this infrastructure development is best taken care of through public-private partnership. So these are the three cornerstones which must be taken care of for public-private partnership projects and for our upcoming revamping of economic policies. Over to John and Afsar. Thank you very much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, primarily I'll be speaking on three topics and divided into smaller subtopics, each segment covering over various aspects of itself. Ladies and gentlemen, in first part of my talk, I would like to cover a wide array of subjects which primarily focus on why the economy of Pakistan is not taking off. And I will take stock of 45 countries post-Cold War. And in that, I will define why almost 1/3 of this group are doing very well, and their GDP growth rate is more than 7% per annum. There's another group which has a quite erratic performance. These are about 15 countries. And lastly, there are countries which are not doing well and have become dysfunctional. And I would try and analyze that where is Pakistan located at the moment, whether it is between group 1 and 2 or group 2 and 3. And the factor which I would discuss would be the weaponization of currency, trade, and economy. And in that, I would draw certain lessons from all the years Pakistan has been there. And in that, I would like to highlight there are certain myths of currency devaluation. There are myths of globalization. And there are myths about the economy. And I would definitely would like to understand in that discussion that why, despite the devaluation of our currency, our exports could not take off. Despite the low inflation rate in certain years, we were still taking our currency, we were still devaluing our currency. Then I would slightly jump over to the Chinese model, where Deng Xiaoping had brought a revolutionary change in the economy of China, an economy which has been doing poorly, almost static at 3% for more than 3 decades. Suddenly, from 1982, where it was at about 3%, to 8+%, where it was called as overheated economy in the world. I would like to also look at the Deng's model of reforming the state-owned entities or state-owned enterprises. I would also carry out discussion that how BMR of state-owned enterprises takes place. And I would also cover the conceptual contours of the debate which Salman has just highlighted, that is corporatization versus privatization. And in my reckoning, both are almost the same effect, except that the major share in one of them are owned by the public sector, whereas in the other, these are owned by the private sector. I would also look at another facet, that Pakistan is a country where every second year we have a disaster worth around $2 to $3 billion loss. And on average, every 5 to 6 years, we have a disaster which gives us a loss of more than $20 billion. And our way of tackling that is just putting in money in a well. So what we need to do is we need to look at it, how to redo the things by creating capital. And creation of capital would always come from the innovative model of financing of projects. We would also look at, in second part of the discussion, maybe second or the part of third day, where we would look at creation of models for mineral development. And what I have seen in certain years, last about 15 years, that no money is created for our mineral resources. However, mineral resources are cheaply sold out, and these do not give good dividend to our country. For instance, Sandak is the example where we have not been able to get appropriate amount of money. I am not highly privy to the agreement which has been signed on record date, but I would like to understand that if a slurry of 20%, valuing about 110,000 tons every day is created, it has more than $250 billion worth. I would also cover the BMR of our state-owned entities like railways, Pakistan Steel Mill. I would also talk about Pakistan International Airline, and I would also give my humble opinion on the privatization drive which is taking place at the moment in the country. In the last part of my discussion, that might be coming on second, third, or fourth day, would be finally giving my verdict or finally giving my professional opinion on BMR of various state-owned entities. And finally, I would unveil a plan on disruptive technologies used in creation of capital and creation of funds. And finally, we will conclude, all of us, by mutual discussion, what we can do to resolve our economic problems. I am sure that this workshop will not only be beneficial to those who attend it. I am looking forward to learn from the august audience who would be there in the workshop. Thank you very much, Salman, and thank you very much, ladies
Sir,
and gentlemen.
I will continue from this valuable discussion of yours, which was basically towards the first part of the workshop, that is resolving Pakistan's economic crunch. But sir, I would like to add one thing, that public-private partnership is the future of Pakistan and the future of all developing economies and even developed economies. But I would like to say that it is a global future for infrastructure development. Because as per GI Hub, that is Global Infrastructure Hub, which is an initiative of G20, $93 trillion are required to develop infrastructure to meet the global GDP demand from 2017 till 2040. That is around about $3.8 trillion per annum. From where this money is going to come? The answer is public-private partnership. And countries like KSA, developed economies like KSA and UAE, are opting for public-private partnership for their multi-billion-dollar projects. And this is one of the reasons why I say that public-private partnership is the future of Pakistan. Because public-private partnership is not being taught in any university as a degree-taking subject. So this is an opportunity to learn from the hard-earned experience of the people who have been in this field since last 10 years plus, individually and cumulatively by 30 years plus. And coming to the basic part of the public-private partnership, public-private partnership with sustainable investment aligning ESG principles. These are the three concepts. Number one, public-private partnership. Number two is sustainable investment. And number three is ESG, environmental, social, and governance principles. They are very well defined by World Association for Public-Private Partnership Professional. It is an NGO, non-profit NGO, which was formed in 2018 with its office at Geneva. It gives a broader outline of the legislative and the legal and the regulatory frameworks based on ethical, accountable, and transparent principles, and gives you the good practices that can be adapted in public-private partnership. So we'll be discussing, number one, the public-private partnership. So there are many definitions given by the world political leader, world business leader, environmental activists, social activists. But the best definition which I have extracted from these is that PPP is advocating collaboration between government entity and private sector organization to deliver a project jointly in the best interest of public. And WAPPP gives you a concept of public first, public-private partnership. This is a very important concept. Then there are four pillars of public-private partnership. Number one is increase investment. This is very obvious. We'll be discussing in detail that how investment can be increased, how the cost of the investment can be reduced. Then is the job opportunities. Naturally, when infrastructure requirement is of that much big volume, then there must be the creation of jobs. Then awareness and innovation are two other factors. We'll be discussing them in details. Then, sir, there are two inputs and four outputs of the public-private partnership, which determines the efficiency of public-private partnership. The inputs, these are the wide inputs. There can be other inputs also, and there can be other outputs also. But strategically speaking, there are two major inputs. Number one is planning, and number two is partnership. These are the inputs, major inputs. And the outputs are very interesting. Outputs are people, prosperity, peace, and planet. So these are the things which we'll be discussing, and these are certain concepts. Then comes the sustainability. So sustainable investment, sustainable development goals. These are the things which commonly people talk about these days. But what is sustainability in this context? The sustainability is using innovation and the latest technologies to give best environmental, social, and economical results for the present and upcoming generation. This is sustainability in the context of sustainable investment. And then comes the ESG principles, that is environmental, social, and governance principles. The environmental aspects covers climate change, reduce carbon emissions, renewable energy and green area, and waste management. Journal is going to cover this topic in a very systematic and actionable way. And I'll not be emphasizing much on that. And then comes the social area, the social aspect of ESG. It is stakeholder involvement. As long as the stakeholders are involved and they are taken care of socially, it is a project which creates an impact. And that impact results into improved uh, service delivery and gives you the projects such as projects in health sector, project in educational sector, which gives the awareness, and of course gives you an innovation through private sector. Then is the governance. Governance is effective leadership and strong regulatory and legal framework. Again, which I call based on EAT. You can call it EAT, ethical, and accountable and transparent principles. So these are the things. Then there are certain PPP aspects which creates impact, and that impact is basically project design and implementation. This is very important because if the design and the implementation phase suits the stakeholders, the external stakeholders especially, then that is very important and that creates an impact. And then comes the regulatory environment. If the regulatory environment gives you a strength to implement the concession agreement in its true spirit, and then the procurement is transparent and dispute resolution, if any, is based and tackled fairly, this again creates an aura and impact which attracts the investors at this point of time. And then there are certain drawbacks also which we'll be discussing, and that is affordability. Because when private sector comes with the public sector and for lower in its investment, then the affordability is a question because tariff and the toll rises, and so this is one of the drawbacks. Then arrangement of equity, because WAPP recommends that you should go stepwise. First handle small project, create a success story, and then move upward. And of course, after that, we can go to the risk transfer also, because the major risk, this Dr. Iftihar is going to cover this subject, are transferred to the private sector. Government sector gives you a regulatory and legal framework and gives you an implementation processes, gives you a strong concession agreement, but the implementation is on the implementation risk, the financing risk, all these risks, major risks are on the private sector. So we have to see that initially I said that a partnership and planning are important. So we have to see whether our partner is strong enough to carry those risks or not. Over to Dr. Iftihar for his valuable comments.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Salman sir, for an excellent introduction to our upcoming workshop, which is very important, and it's going to play a very cardinal role in the career development of the participants, inshallah. As you have told that the major emphasis is on the infrastructure projects planning and their preparation before they are invited to the general public for their expression of interest. And as you are very much aware of the fact that these infrastructure projects, either they are relating to the social sector, that is health, education, and IT sector, as well as the road and transport, either they are covering the power sector. These projects are mostly based on a lot of investments which the private sector and the public sector has to put in. They have to join hands so that they can come up with a win-win solution for all the stakeholders that are involved in this process. To go about this project or these projects, which are infrastructure projects based on and demanding an outlay of billions of rupees, there's a dire need of a well articulated legal framework and which is basically available for all the stakeholders and which should be given by such an independent authorities which have the power from the government to lay down these rules and regulations and the regulatory framework. In Pakistan, we have at the federal level public-private partnership authority, which are mandated to prepare and to outline the policies and the rules and regulations, as well as the guidelines which can be used by all the sectors which wants to go for their PPP projects. In all the provinces, we have the different authorities in Punjab, in Sindh, even in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They have their own PPP authorities which are mandated this special work to draft the policies and the rules and regulations. All of the provinces and the federal have their own acts under the umbrella of which they have prepared their own policies and their frameworks to be followed by the private sector. It's very important that these frameworks or policies to be followed in letter and spirit so that all the stakeholders and the private sector parties have an equal opportunity to avail, and the transparency should prevail in every sector. To hold the principles of transparencies and competition, it's very important that the implementing agencies, which are basically the owners and the clients of these projects, they have to follow the rules. At the federal level, the procurement principles and the procurement laws are governed through the PPP ordinance, PPP ordinance, under this act, the procurement is to be undertaken through the rules which are framed by this special entity. P3A, Public-Private Partnership Authority, have prepared their policies, but they have not yet penned down the rules, and the rules are to be followed prepared by the PPP. Under those rules, every implementing agency has to frame or to draft the consultancy awards or the consultancy awards to the private sector, to the consultancy firms who are going to conduct pre-feasibility and then the feasibilities for the each and every aspect, technical, financial, legal, environmental aspect of each and every project, which the implementing agency wants to offer to the general public or to the to bid for that particular project. After the completion of the feasibility, that feasibility is then presented to the P3 authority, which is going to review the structure of the project, especially the financial structure. Their specialists then put in their efforts to optimize the structure and they get their approval from the respective boards. And based on that structure, then the tender documents are prepared and then offered to the general public. So through this robust framework of laws and the guidelines, private sector has an equal grounds under which they can bid for a certain project. It's very important that legal frameworks are in place. So the loopholes or the gaps which are still available, as you know that nobody can say that there is no room for improvement. So with the passage of time, those improvements will be taken care of, and these procurements of very important strategic projects, which are very important, in fact, for the development of this country and the general betterment of the general people of Pakistan. It's another important aspect that my colleague Salman has mentioned before, that is the risk identification and then its mitigation. As you know that whenever the private sector is involved, the most important area is the sharing of the risks. The principle behind this procurement, that is public-private partnership, is that the risk should be shared or the risk should be parked on the party which is best equipped to handle that risk or mitigate that risk. The time overrun and the cost overrun is parked on the private sector because it is presumed that with the latest technologies and with their better management, the efficiency gains will be reaped by the private sector and the project will be completed within the specified time periods. Similarly, the financing risk is also parked on the private sector because the private sector has a corporate culture already instilled in their organizations and they are well equipped to address the complexities of raising finance from the commercial banks and the international players in the financing markets. Governments, on the other hand, are also available to provide them with the security package which the financiers demand to raise such financing for these long-term infrastructure projects. The security package normally which the lenders requires from the government is in the form of guarantees. Either they are in the form of government guarantees or the sovereign guarantees. They also expect a more favorable financial instrument in the form of SPLCs. That is standby letter of credit, which can be encashable at the time whenever the situation arises. So these are also known as the sweeteners which are offered to the private sector so that can be attracted towards the PPP transactions. It's not an easy thing to invest into a long-term project with a time period of around 25 years, because especially when the demand risk is also parked on the private sector, and with the Pakistan having a very volatile economy and there are fluctuations that can be easily seen in the data that you can have from any website of the economic website, State Bank or the National Bank or the other financial institutions websites. You can have the data available and you can clearly see the fluctuations in the Pakistan economy. those fluctuations that I'm referring to involves the GDP, Pakistan's gross domestic product, which actually is moving around 2 years back, 3 years back, it was at 6%, then now it's in minus. And then another factor is that of the escalation in the prices. You also know that how the situations are moving around in Pakistan with respect to the prices, devaluation of the currency, as well as these are all factors which impact the investments. And the investor is a person who is very much prudent with respect to such factors because they are going to affect its rate of return. Pakistan's overall credit rating has also deteriorated over the period of time. So, at this juncture of our history, wherein Pakistan economy is experiencing a very bad patch, the future of the PPPs is also under question. But at the same time, this is a opportunity for the government also and for the major stakeholders because it is only the PPPs which can offer such a solution wherein all the stakeholders can chip in their efforts and their roles to be played in a positive manner and through which they can steer this economy towards progress. And inshallah, we will discuss that how this can happen. And let me now ask Afzal Saab to please share his comments. Thank you.
Well, I would just give 2-3 remarks at the end. Number one, that all the projects which normally take place, what we generally look for in the public sector is that we look for the money. Unfortunately, pie of PSDP, that is a development fund, is very low. In 2022, I had a lot of discussion with then finance minister, and I had proposed him that you dedicate the entire PSDP fund to as VGF of public-private partnership or investment mode. And the question arose that what would you do on the projects which are already ongoing, and what would you do the political projects which are needed to be done in the coming year. So we sat down, created a formula, and I was very, very sure that we can create a portfolio of about 8 trillion rupees, almost $8,000, 8,000 billion rupees of money on the projects in almost 2.5 years time. Unfortunately, since there are changes in the government hierarchy in Pakistan in a quick succession, so that paradigm which we had created for, we lost that. And I'm very sure that once we are going to carry our discussion on the day of workshop, this is the point which I'm going to explain that how we can create capital. Last year, I was in London School of Economics, and we had a good discussion with one of the advisors of Bank of England. And we were just wondering why Pakistan has not been able to do as good as other 4 big population countries are doing. And we certainly concluded that Pakistan is not creating capital. And I've been wondering since then, it was July last year. I've been wondering since then, it's almost a year, that why we have not been able to create capital in our country. And fortunately, I have a number of points which we will share during the workshop. I would also share certain points on disproportionate allocation of Pakistani budget to various entities. And that disproportion is actually taking the toll of our economy. I have already said in the first session of this webinar that I have carried out a deep study of almost 45 countries post Cold War. And I've already highlighted that almost 1/3 are doing very well. Their GDP growth is around 7.5, 8. There are 1/3 of this group which either do 6 or either do 1 or 2 GDP growth percentage of GDP growth increase. And there is a third group which is not doing at all well. And these countries are in the realm of dysfunctional states. And we will draw certain correlation between the certain things going on in Pakistan and try to figure out which side is Pakistan heading to. It is heading to the first group, it is heading to the second group, or it is even heading to the third group, which I have just said. And I very strongly believe that we will be able to find out certain conclusions of that. But I am very sure that development in Pakistan, if it is taken to the private sector, it has the potential of creating a lot of capital. And I have no doubt about it that public sector will ever be able to do the projects themselves. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And Salman is raising hand. We will ask him to wind up, and then if we have certain questions from the audience, we can take those.
There are certain factors, as you are an authority, mashallah, on revamping the economical structure of Pakistan. And there are certain sectors such as climate change and such as mental health issues and uncertainties in the global economy, which are not given the due weightage while forming the policies of Pakistan and forming the policies of developing economies, especially. For instance, the climate change, as there's a wide difference in opinion between economists and the scientists, because the economists say that by 2100, there is going to be a temperature change of 3.5 degrees Celsius, which is going to cause GDP to a ratio of 2.5% to 5%. And at present, the global GDP is 104 trillion US dollars. This is a handsome amount. But one thing which they are forgetting, that by 2100, the world is going to be 500 to 1,000 times richer than what it is right now. So, sir, this is the subject which you will be handling in the workshop. And number 2 is mental health issues. This is very important because as per WHO report, every year, 12 billion working days are lost due to anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues. And it is costing round about $1 trillion per annum. And only 2.5% of the global budget for health is kept for this mental health issues. And then there are certain uncertainties which must be kept in mind while making the policies, such as 9/11 issues, such as USA bombardment on Iraq for weapons of mass destruction. Then comes the invasion on Afghanistan, then COVID, then recent invasion of Russia on Ukraine, and then the present Gaza dispute. So I would like you to shed some informative, brief uh, knowledge about climate change and its impacts in particular and on other two topics.
Uh, Salman, I would just give one odd comment because we are running short of time. And if we have questions, we would take that. But I would just say that unfortunately, on climate change, especially disaster management, we are going in a wrong direction. At the moment, all our disaster preventions, all our disaster financial disaster risk financing are in a manner that they are going to create more disasters. I would just give two examples of that. Number one example is that almost all the floodplains of our rivers are occupied by the population. Reason being that you keep making embankment, keep closing down the river floodplains, and the population keep coming behind that embankment of mud which you are trying to create. While I got a chance to explain it and try to implement it, my view was that you means the country and the international community should spend money to vacate the floodplains of those rivers which are already there in Pakistan, and they would take care of the flood problems. Similarly, in northern part of the country, what I've seen is that you keep making concrete walls, and concrete walls keep increasing the temperature, ambient temperature in the area. That's how you are trying to mitigate the disaster. Unfortunately, that is not going to work. I happen to visit China, and I have seen a new way of mitigating effect of climate change and even the disaster. And that we would be definitely discussing during the discussion. I did certain innovations on disaster risk financing. And I also did certain experimentation on financing of climate change. I will share with the audience that too, and would request audience to have free comments so that we can come to some kind of consensus on those topics. Uh, I think that was all from my side, and I believe that if somebody from the audience have certain question, we have 3-4 minutes. We can just quickly go over that.
Yes, we are open for the question and answer session. But during the same time, within the expertise of Dr. Iftikhar in financing, actually, yeah. Actually, there are private sector is anticipated to go for some innovative financing processes also, and such as Journal mentioned, viability gap fund, during which is viability gap fund capital and viability gap fund in operations. During construction period is capital, and during operation period it is operational. Then we have activity-based payments, then we have value capture financing, then we have infrastructure bonds, public-private partnership in equity, and then we have crowdfunding, and then impact investments also. Dr. Sahab, I would like you to shed some informative knowledge regarding viability gap fund.
Funding is a very important strategy and a tool that can be utilized by the implementing agencies to attract the private investment, especially the commercial banks or the loan part of the transaction, because it makes the project more viable and bankable for the lenders to free their available resources for that particular project. As Mr. Saman has already informed you that it's a tool and it has to be arranged by the federal government or the provincial government. or the implementing agencies, if they have enough resources available at their hand under their belt, which they can spare, and they can allow the private sector to utilize that funds, and they can allow them to have a lien, special lien on those funds to be utilized during the construction or if required during the operations period. When the private sector demands this viability gap funding during the construction period, it is basically there to compensate the exorbitant amount of the investment that is required for that infrastructure project. As I've already told you that if we go for an IPP or a power sector project, it has to be in the millions of dollars. Similarly, nowadays, a motorway project also costs in billions of rupees. Our one Sakhar Hyderabad project, which is M6, it happens to be around $1 billion right now. So any infrastructure project with this amount of investment required, so it's not possible for even the banking community of fraternity of Pakistan that they can come up with this large amount of liquidity at their hand. So in that case, they demand a viability gap funding from the government or the provincial governments to come up and step up to invest something from their side so that the funds to be arranged by the private sector in the form of the equity and the loans can reduce. Similarly, to cover the risk of the demand side or the revenue side during the operations period, the banks need or demand that some risk to be taken care of by the implementing agency so that their amounts in the form of the principal loan and in the form of the markup they can be paid during the appropriate time period which is agreed.
This time to explain our point of view regarding the upcoming workshop. One thing I'm going to repeat once again, that this is a best opportunity for anyone who is trying to have his career in public-private partnership, who want to excel his career in his present position. He must attend this workshop. This is something with some kind of ideas which were never discussed in Pakistan in such workshops. And this is a golden opportunity for you to avail from the leaders of the public-private partnership, which I again mentioned, that they can be rated as the pioneers of public-private partnership, successful projects in the recent past. And this is the best combination of client and the concessionaire in a public-private partnership, and you can learn from their hard-earned practical experience. Thank you very much. God bless you. Any questions? I think it's over. Thank you very much. So nice of you. God bless you.